Bar Sevius. So it's not like a real-time time limit, it's more of a in-game time limit. So whenever I travel to... Time passes slowly when you're in the maps, like in the zoomed-in maps. But when time mostly passes is when you're traveling or resting. Barik turns to face you, nodding silently. A short sigh escapes as he waits for you to speak.
What can I do for you?
I'd like to know more about you. I am the line your enemies cannot cross. All their details are meaningless, but I suspect you have some thirst for details, so ask away. Did you seek the trade of war, or did it find you? Both, I suppose. I knew fighting was in my blood, and the disfavored offered me a chance to use my skills to bring peace. Otherwise, I'd have wound up some brigand or an enforcer to a crooked merchant. Barik taps his scabbard, looking away in thought. You think Ash and his legions bring peace? That's cute, but it doesn't hold water from where I'm standing, big guy. I've seen them spill as much blood as any chorus gang. You've clearly been too busy sacking villages and stealing crops to notice how a proper army conducts a war. We sow order, not discord. You two are worse than Ash and the Voices. Stop this at once. Drawing himself up, Barik glares at you with distaste. Speaking ill of the great general is not wise while I am in earshot, Fatebinder. Hey, the boss has a point. Trading jabs is fun, but it's not going to get us anywhere. Verse chuckles and shakes her head. May I continue my story, or do you plan on interrupting again? Barik waits until Verse makes a rude, dismissive wave before continuing. The disfavored need recruits in anticipation of the march south. They offered to care for my mother and brother as long as I stayed with the Legion, which is a better guarantee than you'll find anywhere else. I was an elite fighter as far as most were concerned, though still greened by disfavored standards. Luckily for everyone, my skills improved under the Iron Marshal's rigorous training. Maybe you can tell me about your name? Barik is a shortening of my northern surname, which has been passed down through the generations since Graven Ash assembled his army. I go by it because I wear it with pride. The proper form is Barekonin. Beyond its age and association with the General's Legion, the name of Barekonin has no great title or associations. I hold no claim to a great house or legacy, save for the disfavored. They are all the kin I need. And what's the story with your armor?
It is a symbol of Kairos' will. One that I am not likely to forget. I found this armor. Perhaps it would be better to say that it found me during the Edict of Storms.
And what happened during the Edict of Storms? When we heard that Kairos would proclaim the edict, we rushed into the field to battle the forces of Stalwart. I was shoulder to shoulder with some of the Legion's most decorated veterans, and my pride blinded me to the danger. Our march was a hasty one. A cohort of disfavored soldiers vanished in the second year of the war, among them the daughter of Graven Ash. After a long silence, we learned that she was held in the fortress of Sentinel Stand. Go on. As we surrounded the citadel, I heard the opening peals of thunder, as did the scout I was busy trying to kill. Then the winds hit like an avalanche. Many of us begged Kairos for deliverance. What else were we to do? The winds knocked the legs of our offensive out from under us. All the decorated soldiers I brought to the battle were swept up and dashed to pieces, their armor and bodies mixing with the dirt of a tornado that spun in maddening revolutions. Oh, what's Lantry sound like? I don't know, I can't remember. Not this gonna be right anyway. Damn thing chooses this moment to go dry, and with so few survivors to recount the edict. Bah! Lantry shakes his quill and presses it harder against a scrap of parchment, imploring it to write. A piece of the citadel wall broke off and nearly crushed my skull. I only remember a few scattered moments from the storm, like the flying bits of bronze and iron cutting my flesh, the severed limbs of fallen soldiers tumbling through the air. Eventually, I woke up, thinking myself trapped under rubble. When I rose and felt like I was unbuckling under my own weight, that's when I realized I was stuck, right and truly stuck, inside this heap of scrap. And what happened to Ash's daughter after the edict hit? She was trapped behind the walls of Sentinel Stand, imprisoned by Kairos' storm as well as the fortress itself. 1,000 soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder could not have endured those winds to rescue her. How did you survive when everyone fell? That was a mystery to me as well. Did Kairos hear my plea for mercy? Did this heap of scrap metal protect me, imprison me, punish me? He rubs the back of his helmet with his gauntleted hand, a pantomime of a gesture his armor prohibits. All right, thanks for watching and lurking. Enjoy the editing. I know it can be tedious work. I don't have enough fingers or toes to count the possible reasons, so I try not to dwell on them. You're generally stuck in there. Haven't tried taking it off. I made attempts in the past, even had one of the beast haulers pull on the helmet while another pulled on my boots. The men in the phalanx have taken great pleasure in trying to find ways to liberate me. In time, I grew weary of the struggle. Sometimes I fear that removing the armor would be to question Kairos' judgment and risk a more odious curse. It looks like pretty solid protection. That would be an understatement. If only it protected me from foolish questions. Barik regards you in such a way that you can tell he's rolling his eyes. A forlorn sigh escapes his helmet. Do you handle your own repairs? I try to keep the surface oiled to slow the spreading rust, and I bend the plates from time to time, but repairs, maintenance? No. If you have any ideas how to better maintain this situation, I'm open to discussing them. Back to my questions about you. By all means, Fatebinder. As with all disfavored, I assume you grew up in the Northern Empire? That's right. I grew up in Battle's Rest, then trained at Fort Resolution before they marched me out to support the second cohort. I hope to spend my rusting years in Freton Shores, unless of course I die in a glorious battle, which would be preferable. My mother is good with the soil, my father with rings. He spends much of his time away on one merchant's errands or another. Still, I'm lucky to say they're both alive. Let us speak of something else now. As you like. Would you like to discuss removing your armor? He looks at you for a very long time, his expression as unreadable as ever.
Though we are encouraged to couple and mate within the Legion, I don't consider you one of my cohorts. I think I'll decline.
I wasn't talking about sex, Barik.
You weren't? Forgive me. It's been some time since anyone made an advance, and I am long out of practice, as you can see.
He knocks on his iron codpiece with a resounding clang.
Suffice it to say, my armor and I will not be separated for the time being. When the war is over, perhaps Tunon will lend me one of his forge-bound. Until then, here I remain.
Yeah. Seraphim and Pillars of Eternity 2 is like that as well.
My armor saved me from the destruction of Stalwart, where thousands of others lost their lives. So you can see why I continue to wear it. For the time being, we will not be separated.
Are you comfortable in there? I have somehow developed enough calluses that I can sleep at night, but I wouldn't call that comfort, would you? This is my armor. It has everything it needs and more. Purpose, meaning, strength. If it were comfortable, that would only take away from its other qualities. Then do you even want it removed? I would not speak of this now, Fatebinder. Please, consider the topic closed. As your commander, I am concerned about the state of your uniform. Damn it, you are right to be concerned. My apologies that you needed to pull rank. It was wrong of me to withhold information. I don't need to tell you that this suit of junk is a literal pain in my ass. Half broken, smelling of a midden, and perpetually jabbing my side with some Kairos-be-damned caltrop. These dusty plates may not be up to standard, but they serve the disfavored well enough on the battlefield, if only to intimidate the enemy. Better for me to endure this condition than to shirk an advantage. Considering that I wore this as I marched across the bones of Stalwart, that was, my burden growing heavier with each step, I have no desire to leave it behind. It's a lesson, a reminder, and yes, a prison. But all of those things make it something more. It's an armor fastened in ideas, Lantry mutters to himself soberly and commits a few words to his manuscript. These plates have something of me in them. They are as wicked as Bramble Patch, as stubborn as a fortress, and hopelessly flawed. Barik, they have not something of you in them, they have all of you in them. At present, removing my armor is not an option. If that ever changes, I suspect that the tiers will tremble with the impact of my collapsing fortification. What a day that will be. And what does Graven Ash think of your predicament? I suspect that he doesn't, not to besmirch the great general. He has larger matters to consider than any one soldier's woes. His shrug sends a puff of debris clattering to the ground. And how long do you think it can last? The armor hasn't shown any sign of weakening, and my maintenance regimen is all that keeps it from rusting solid. Were I to stop applying oil and give in to entropy, this shell would harden to a degree that no forge master has ever seen. I think it could very well stand for as long as the old walls, with my skeleton peering out from the depths, and someday not even that. Now isn't that a cheery thought? Tell me about what you can and can't do. I can strike fear into the hearts of our enemies and protect a shield wall with my very body. What more do I need? How do you fare in water? Better to ask, how do I sink? The answer is, quickly. Water passes my lips easily enough, though I take great care to keep it from anywhere else. And how do you vacate your bowels? Let us say I manage, and manage poorly. The parts of this misbegotten thing I can reach are in better repair than the ones I can't. How do you take pleasures from life? Are we actually talking about this, Fatebinder? Do you have nothing better to do than wonder how I access my nether regions for a frenzy's bout of self-interest? I don't want to hear this. How do I even run far enough to avoid it? First plugs her ears and winces against the inevitable. Well, I can't, and not from lack of trying. My works are inaccessible from the outside, and much as I've tried to worm my arm out of this sleeve of iron, I would only succeed in dislocating my shoulder. If you ever think me frustrated or disagreeable, just imagine what I've dealt with since the 3rd year of the conquest, or more accurately, what I haven't dealt with. Oh. I packed my other questions about your armor. Go on, then. I'm only getting rustier and standing here entertaining your curiosity. Never mind, let's talk about something else, then. I am only too eager to move on. I have so much to talk about. Tell me about the disfavored. We are the Iron Legion, the warriors elite of Kairos' fighting force. I could easily lose count of the hours extolling our glories. What is it you would like to know? Have you fought in any notable battles? I served in Stalwart for the better part of a year, faced the enemy everywhere from Coral Run to Sentinel Stand. I lost count of the battles. Seems like we fought every other day. A sigh echoes in the cavern of his helm. Some of our best victories took place there, fighting an enemy worthy of our iron. But we were not successful enough to please the Overlord, and the final intervention was harsh on us all. Barik takes in a deep breath, his arms folding as his posture stiffens. I had an unusual view of the Edict of Storms. Kairos' judgment left its mark on me, yet considering how we fought at Stalwart, with the skill and honor of legend, only the Edict is remembered. A shame. I think everybody in this is, even though they're like violent warmongers, they're very... they seem to be very sexually open. Sex and violence. Just like Hollywood. Tell me about Graven Ash. Graven Ash is the general of the disfavored, veteran of centuries of battle and an Archon without peer. I would follow him to the void and back without question. Barik swings his arm in salute. Yeah. And how did he come to serve Kairos? Before the uniting of the Northern Empire, Graven Ash served as a warlord in the services of one of the local kings that defied Kairos' rule. Incredible as it may seem, Ash stood against Kairos' rule. Though his army was dismantled by Kairos' overwhelming numbers, Ash's forces performed admirably. It was said that he and his troops claimed 77 lives for each of their own. Kairos took an interest in the military genius that bloodied his army. Graven Ash was summoned to a conclave of Archons, and though he was set in chains, he left as an Archon, having been granted a position of power in Kairos' great host of war. Thus, the disfavored were born. All of us today trace our line back to those warriors that impressed Kairos with their will and tenacity. The only difference is now we fight on the winning side. Though the general seldom speaks of it, I know that Ash humbled himself in order to spare his troops the brunt of Kairos' punishment. His loyalty to the old blood of the North is beyond question. So, Ash bent his knee to a conqueror. Graven Ash made the ultimate sacrifice. To spare the Legion, he put his loyalty ahead of his pride. There is no great honor, and I will not hear otherwise from the likes of you. There is no greater honor. Barik leans forward and glares through the darkness of his helm. A groan of bending metal resounds in the silence between you. Did you tend to side or favor the disfavored or the Scarlet Chorus when you were playing? And what else do you know of his past? I follow him into battle. I am not his personal scribe. If I did know more of him, it would not be my place to say. Barik takes a half step back, folding his arms across his chest. My character, it seems like, should favor the Scarlet Chorus, just based on his personality, but it seems like my decisions are leading towards the getting more favor with the disfavored. Oh, okay. Oh, you're in the middle of it still? As an Archon, what magic does he wield? Ash works his magic through us, his soldiers. When we do battle, Ash seems to know the events before our runners have given word. Most importantly, though, he protects us. It's a bit tricky to explain unless you've experienced it. Oh, I can think of countless times I've been struck by a spear or hit with an axe, and even run through with an arrow, and in each of these moments the pain and injury just ceased to be. None of us know how he does it, or how he can sense that we're in danger, and intervene from afar, but I suppose that's why he's an Archon. What he does probably wouldn't make sense to someone like me. Oh, okay. How do you feel about Graven Ash? How do I feel about him? Archon Ash is the bravest, warmest, most compassionate general who ever lived. He's a living icon of leadership and courage. Barik tilts his head slightly to the side, as far as the suit's limited range of motion permits. Ash is a soldier, but he doesn't kill for sport. A leader, but he doesn't issue commands to hear himself talk. He demands discipline and sober conduct of his troops. And I applaud such standards. Back to my questions about the disfavored. Gotta catch my breath. Okay. What can you tell me about your time in the Legion? Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I try to do that when I'm playing computer role-playing games. I find it more enjoyable than just trying to, like, choose the best path or the best ending or the most effective path. What can you tell me about your time in the Legion? I joined the Legion 3 years before the conquest of the Tiers began. Though handy with a few weapons, my size made me the perfect addition to a phalanx. I've served with the stone shields ever since. Proud to say I've stood front row, right corner in over a dozen battles. That has been my place ever since the Iron Marshal gave me the assignment. The Bastard City, the Gates of Judgment, Vendrian Pass, Ocon's Ring, a quick tour in Barris and Chains, and then Stalwart. I spent a long time in Stalwart. Lost a lot of friends there. Do you play any tabletop role-playing games? And what of the other disfavored lieutenants? They are Graven Ash's most trusted officers and warriors from the Iron Guard. Between Ash's arcane powers of command and his cadre of gifted leaders, there is little confusion or chaos in the ranks. Tell of the one they call Iron Marshal. She takes it upon herself to train and harden our greener recruits. Not only that, she has a keen eye for talent and how to foster it for leadership. She is the youngest member of the Iron Guard. The family line served the disfavored back before Ash bowed to Kairos. Say what you will of how many seasons she's weathered, her lineage is impressive beyond measure. And what of Cairn's disciple Radix? an Earthshaker who swore service to Cairn a few years before the conquest. Since Cairn is gone, the cult now follows Radix. Unlike his Archon, at least he knows how to follow orders. To his credit, Radix seems to appreciate the honor of fighting alongside the disfavored. Cairn was always peeved to be invited into glory. The mages seem a necessary complication. They are insubordinate and can't lug their own supplies, but I would not want to go to war without their spells of tremor and leaping stones. Second, gotta send a text. Pizza and juice. Okay. Played a lot of D&D over the years, but less so these days. Been playing a game called The Sprawl with some friends, and you played Magic the Gathering, although that's not an RPG. I used to play D&D 3.5, 3rd edition, played a bit of 4th edition, played quite a bit of Pathfinder. I'm trying to play different systems now. I've played so much D&D, and all the editions are very similar, so I want to try different systems at this point. What's the Sprawl like? What of the Scoutmaster's Merrick? Merrick is a devoted leader, and Ash seems to hold his council in high regard, both set their troops ahead of themselves, which I'm sure is why they work so well together. He's no magician, but he does share a special connection to his warband, and they are entrusted with the most important scouting assignments. They say he can see what his scouts see, hear what they hear. And what of the veteran warrior, Veramis? He is the finest of us, second only to Ash. Veramis is an evocatus, a soldier who lived to see the end of his term of service. It's rare for anyone to survive that long, much less willingly return. These days, he lends his tactical expertise to Graven Ash, though by all rights he should be enjoying his twilight years in a seat of honor and dignity. Back to my questions about the disfavored. Is it one of the games that's based on Powered by the Apocalypse? It sounds familiar to me. Or the Apocalypse engine, I should say. No, it's Powered by the Apocalypse. And why didn't the Legions prevent the uprising of Vendrian's Well? I think that's a question you got to ask the Scarlet Chorus. They, too, were charged with ensuring the locals remained vanquished and unarmed. Barik lurches forward as he speaks, iron plates grinding under his motion. Yeah, I'm currently running a role-playing game called Legacy: Life Among the Ruins, 2nd edition. That was powered by the Apocalypse, so I have a little bit of familiarity with the idea. It's like 2d6 plus your stats, and then you have to like choose consequences and the benefits based on your success or failure. Same first time I used it. Takes some getting used to. It's pretty different from D&D. I would say the Vendrian Guard are really the only guilty party. It was their rebellion, after all. That is a supposition unworthy of you, Fatebinder. The Tears are but children before Kairos. We don't blame them for their ignorance, but the responsibility to set them straight is ours alone. What more can you tell me of this Legion? The disfavored accept only the finest warriors. We were all volunteers and soldiers by trade, not farmers and fishmongers pressed into service. There's a century of tradition, honor, and tactical mastery in our ranks. We don't let just anyone into the Legion. Only Northmen of character and prowess are welcome. And what if a capable Tearsman wished to join? We would not recruit even a champion of the Tearsmen. Each soldier in the Legion is tied by blood and fealty to those that stood with Graven Ash during the coming of Kairos. That is part of who we are, and that will never change. So why is the Legion called the Disfavored? It is a name born in shame, now worn in honor. After Graven Ash stood against Kairos, he was forced to give up much, his allegiance, his pride, and the name of his vaunted army. What was Legion originally called? The name has been forgotten by all save Ash and Kairos, and it is considered bad form to bring up the topic. Since you didn't know any better, I'll say this much. Disfavored is the only name by which one needs to know us. Let's speak of something else. Back to my previous questions. By all means, Fatebinder. I have some questions about the Scarlet Chorus. Our allies do not share the disfavored sense of honor and discipline. The Chorus will trust any criminal, rapist, or half-wit with a truncheon or blade. What would you like to know about the Scarlet Chorus? What do you know of the voices of Nerat? The Archon of Secrets? All I know are rumors, hearsay, speculation. But that's as much as anyone knows of the voices. Some accounts tell that he's actually dead, and the Overlord has trapped the minds of his foes in the same body to torture them all. As likely an explanation as any I've heard. In truth, I know little of the voices, and have reason to suspect almost anything about him could be true. You could tell me his tears turned cheese back into milk, and it would seem more sensible to believe you than not. Horrible inflection there. Oh well. And do you know anything about his powers? I am no scholar of sorcery, but as I understand it, the voices of Nerat is a thief of minds. They say he can swipe your thoughts and make them his own. I don't know how it works. When I recruited into the disfavored, the Iron Marshal told me never to take an audience with the voices, if I didn't have a witness on hand. Do you think him disloyal? I really shouldn't comment on such matters. Barik looks ahead blankly and then clears his throat. I heard his... You know what? I did hear his tears can turn cheese into milk. That's very amusing, Fatebinder. Queenslayer? I don't think I did. I don't think I earned that title. It's been a while since I played, though. My main game right now is Pillars of Eternity 2, so I'm playing this kind of interspersed, just enough to post videos on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays to YouTube. So if I start running out of videos, I'll play this. But then once I'm done Pillars of Eternity 2, I'll make this my main game. So I may have, but I just can't remember because it's been so long since I played. And what do you know of his associate, the Archon Siren? Siren is the Archon of Song, and one of the youngest of her rank. She can influence human emotion with her voice alone. The voices may be the conductor of the chorus, but I'd argue Siren is the best weapon. The voices put her talents to good use. He had her singing a song up and down the coast, and the tearsmen defected to the chorus in droves. Once I got to the DLC, I found it got very difficult, and I had to optimize my party for me to enjoy it again. And also, I had to make sure scaling was on, so the difficulty wasn't too easy. Before the DLC, back to my questions about the Scarlet Chorus. And what can you tell me about their troops and tactics? Tactics? These are the first I've heard of them. The Chorus is more of an irregular mob than a proper army. Still, it's a well-armed mob, and they even have a few proper warriors and magicians in their pitiful excuse for ranks. What was I going to say? Is there a way for me to check if I have that title? What do you know of their warriors? Most chorus rats are untrained peasants handing a knife or a pitchfork. Handed a knife or a pitchfork. It doesn't take much to qualify you for the front lines. One only needs a beating heart, and even then the chorus could make do. Of course, not everyone in the chorus is an infirm child or sickly old crone. Some ex-soldiers and madmen join, and the fighting elite of the chorus form a clique known as the Scarlet Furies. Barik is too dismissive by far, but he's right that most recruits are novices pressed into service. Most will not survive the first few battles. Those who live will have experience to lead, and those who fall can easily be replaced. What sort of magic does the chorus use? Okay. The Blood Chanters are the mages who follow the voices of Nerat. Like the chorus itself, their order is not steeped in tradition and antiquity, rather built on knowledge stolen from other guilds. Their fire magic earns them a place on the battlefield, but they also have chants that stir the mind and the heart. The motherless sods have spells that can bolster a man's courage, or tap into his fears. If the chorus is in a mob, how is it led and supplied? The voices of Narat gives orders to his elite commanders, who in turn send instructions out to the gang captains. But beneath that hierarchy, it is chaos. Whole gangs will break from the larger forces and disperse into their homelands. The chorus is inefficient beyond words, and yet more bodies keep coming in to replace those lost in the mess. Inefficient? Every weakling lost in the shuffle is one less burden to those in the choir, still dancing to the song of the battle. Our ways must be harsh, otherwise the stupid and the soft will inherit the chant. The chorus has a lot of mouths to feed, so the conscripts that can't or won't fight are made to gather food and water. Else, I'm told, they're fed to the pigs, becoming food and water, in a sense. Barik shrugs. A fine contrast to the honor, efficiency, and decency of the disfavored. The Legion demands courage and tenacity, but provides us with good iron, and does not leave its soldiers to forage like vultures. I'll see if I can figure that out after this conversation. Back to my previous questions about the Scarlet Chorus. By all means. I think I'm going to save my conversation with Lantry for later. This is taking a long time. How do you think the Scarlet Chorus convinced so many Tearsmen to join? It began with Siren. She had a song that got whole villages marching to her will, and once these peasants killed their neighbors or cousins in service of the voices, it either hardened them into warriors or broke their mind for servitude. Lots of criminals and drifters joined the chorus, too. It seemed like the scum of the Tears just needed the promise of glory and sanctioned debauchery to turn on their neighbors. Yeah. It's not pretty, and it shouldn't be. The chorus is a forge. All the dirt of the Tears goes in, and the finest bits are refined into weapons. There are many that join the Scarlet Chorus because they wish to join the winning side. It's a shame that such patriots were not born to proper northern stocks, too weak or too slight to be disfavored. Oh, some opens up throughout the game? I was worried that some dialogue choices might, get lost as I played the game, which is kind of why I'm trying to go through them through the first chapter. I don't know if events will, kind of lock off options. The Scarlet Chorus is their best freedom from fealty to the younger realms. Not everyone has the fortune of gaining Tunon's favor. The disfavored turn away all the people of the Tears? That seems selective to the point of foolishness. I would not expect a Fatebinder of Tunon to grasp notions of pedigree and standards. The disfavored are a family, not some military orphanage or home of second chances. Enough about the Scarlet Chorus. Yeah.
Good. Let's move on to another matter.
And what can you tell me about the Tears? Uphill both ways and full of dumb sods. I learned some history and training, and I've been here for a few years. But I'm no expert. What is your assessment of the local forces? There was a time early in the war when I would have feared the younger realms working together. Imagine that, he chuckles. Once I saw the modest scope of their defensive, I knew they would be easily outclassed. They couldn't even rally their best to make a competent stand. Tell me about the Vendrian Guard. They used to be the Queen's Royal Army of Vendrian. I guess defeat inclined them to a shorter name. We crushed them back in 429. I'm proud to say I took part in the decisive battle. You know the rest. A year after we thought them conquered, thousands of Vendrian Oathbreakers murdered the garrison and declared themselves free of the Overlord's rule. Tell me of the Unbroken. The Unbroken Union of Stalwart. May they rot in the decrepitude of their fallen realm. Barik squeezes his gauntlet into a hard fist. I need a periodic reminder of what their voices sound like, too, so I can try to do a better imitation. Much as it pains me to admit it, all the realms of the Tears, the Unbroken, have been the only foe worthy to meet the disfavored in battle. Okay. The Unbroken value tradition just as we do. Stalwart has never lost a war on their own soil, a reputation they take quite seriously. It is unfortunate Stalwart has poor relations with all its neighbors. The rest of the Tears will not come to their aid. So as bravely as they fight, their end is inevitable. Basically, you had an option to bait the queen into striking you during the treaty conference, resulting in you challenging her to a duel. I think I made her submit, if that is one of the options. That sounds like what I did. And what can you tell me of the Bronze Brotherhood? Mercenaries from the free cities. The chorus needs extra muscle, and you can always mint new rings. Hard to believe the Tearsmen turned on each other for mere loops of metal. The Bronze Brotherhood worships the Scourges. Yes, those monsters from the old walls. The mercenaries are grown adults that willingly admires a magical abomination. Read into that what you will. That said, it should surprise no one that the Bronze Brotherhood eventually wanted more than just rings and turned on their contract. Kairos now considers them an enemy, which is for the best. The Overlord needs a better class of combatants. Back to my previous questions.
Go on, Fatebinder.
Almost there? What do you know of the Younger Realms? Before we marched on the Bastard Tier, I recall Graven Ash giving us a speech as we stood assembled at Fort Resolution. He told us that the Younger Realms lacked the sense to make a stand against us. I don't think I need to point out that the average Tearsman is just plainly inferior to the sons and daughters of the North. For every one of ours they kill, we must drag a score and a half bleeding into the soil with us. It didn't help they're afraid of magic and relied on their battlefield prowess to stage a defense. And what do you know of the Beastmen? They drilled us on Beastmen combat before the invasion, but it did little to prepare us. The local savages are lacking in brains, hygiene, and the ability to arm themselves. Yet the prime hunters of their species are formidable. Sounds a little like you. Aside from being rapacious killers, the Beastmen make good haulers and laborers, once you've killed the half that won't follow orders. Enough about the Tiers. As you like. You seem like a more than capable fighter. I trained with a spear and shield in my youth, but gave it up the day I earned disfavored iron. I can still throw with some accuracy, but it's a challenge these days. He knocks twice on his helmet. Why, were you interested in a sparring session? I heard a rumor that Ash has an unbeatable sword-fighting technique. Barik Fear 2. You flatter the Legion's reputation, but the Archon does make sure we are competent swordsmen. Observe. I gained one-handed weapon skill ranks 5. Barik takes up a sword and offers several practice jabs, testing its weight and balance. Before you know what to expect, the gleaming iron whips through the air fast enough for a sharp breeze to disturb the air. Barik does this several more times, never showing any sign of exhaustion. What is it you have on your mind? I think I've pretty much... Okay. What do you think of our circumstances? The edict left little room for confusion. A representative of the Overlord must breach Ascension Hall before Kairos' Day of Swords, and must assume death is the price of failure. We should assist the disfavored in their siege preparations, as only the Legion should take the Well's fortified citadel. I wouldn't wager a wooden ring on the Scarlet Chorus impressing anyone but the Vultures. What are your thoughts on me and my deeds? Any reservations I have aside, your military record speaks for itself. You are Tunon's Fatebinder, and my opinions on that matter don't come into it one way or another. And what do you think of our travel companions? I am more accustomed to traveling in the company of soldiers, so I am out of practice judging the worth of civilians and miscreants. If you had anyone particular in mind, I will give them some thought. What do you think of Lantry? I do not know how many years he has walked the face of Taratus, but he clearly knows more than he claims to. Since he claims to know a great deal indeed, there is no limit to what he could be holding back. And what do you think of Verse? I try not to. She is a force of chaos, and an agent of the voices of Nerat. Taking her into our confidence can only lead to ruin. And yet, she is a capable fighter. For the time being, I am confident that you can trust her to serve your interests, and rely on her skills on the battlefield. She may even offer some useful perspective on the war. Farewell. Alright. Whew. And that's another reason I want to talk to them earlier, is to get the reputation abilities. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab a drink. Make a save. Did I save it? Okay, there you go. Oh yeah.